Late last year, we got our first taste of the new Maserati MC20 on Australian roads. But there's a definite ceiling on how much you can learn about a 463 kilowatt supercar on the public highway. And that's why today we've come to Phillip Island. The MC20 is intended to be a sign of Maserati's renaissance. The iconic Italian brand has been pushed from pillar to post for decades, but now, at long last, it appears to have the right combination of freedom and direction. You see, Maserati used to be owned by Ferrari, and Ferrari said, "We'll do the supercars, thanks." Then Maserati needed volume, so concentrated on SUVs. But now the MC20 is basically a statement that says, look what we can do. It's a handsome thing, understated by supercar standards, but still exotic. The chassis is carbon fibre, so it's relatively light at 1,475 kilos. There's plenty of rubber at each corner and massive carbon ceramic brakes. And nestled in the middle is a clever 3-litre twin-turbo V6 that produces an immense 463 kilowatts and 730 newton metres. Enough for a 0 to 100 claim of just 2.9 seconds and a top speed north of 325 kilometres an hour. The engine basically uses two combustion systems to ensure as much of the fuel is burned as possible. That's not only good for emissions, but it produces more power too, so it's basically a win-win situation. And that's all great, but if the MC20 is going to re-establish Maserati's reputation, it's going to have to be pretty special to drive too. Alright, so rolling out on track in the MC20. First things first, the numbers can get a bit academic in these cars, so let me just go full throttle in an MC20 and show you how quick this thing is. So first gear, 50 k's an hour, has 80, 100, 120, 150, and that's 200. So it really doesn't take very long. So let me talk you around this car because, man, it is quite a fearsome thing. It's kind of hard to know what to expect from a Maserati supercar because there hasn't really been one. Last one was the MC12, which was shared with the Enzo, but of course they only made 50 of those, so no one really drove one. I thought it would be kind of Ferrari-ish, and it sort of is in the fact that it's got really, really light, really fast steering. But apart from that, it definitely feels like its own thing. But let's start with this engine. 3-litre Nettuno V6, and it is an absolute masterpiece. It is absolutely ridiculous what this thing can do. It's got so much torque. We're at 4,000 RPM now, and it just pulls instantly. Get these birds out of the way, yet it keeps revving all the way to 8. The speed is just relentless. It is so fast. It's been quite a while since I've driven a car this potent because, to be honest, it feels a little bit alarming. The flexibility of this engine and the throttle response, it almost doesn't feel turbocharged. It's got the big mid-range of a turbo, but it just revs. Absolute masterpiece. It doesn't sound, incredible in the sense of like a V12 or a V10, but it's actually kind of got its own character. Especially here in car, it's got a nice bit of a rasp to it. There we go, 250, 260 down the main straight. Hard on the brakes for turn 1. Now, steering. Let's go to steering next. So light, but beautifully weighted. Beautifully weighted and very fast, very accurate, but there is actual feedback. Actual connection. I mean, we'd call it feel, I guess. And so few cars have it, and that's where I think it differs mostly from the Ferrari. Ferraris have very quick steering like this, but tend to be quite numb, whereas this is beautifully textured. Brakes are super strong, you just lean on them. There's not even any ABS intervention, which is quite rare. Nor is there any hint of fade. Quick word, we've got 3 drive modes. We've got GT, Sport, and Corsa. Being on a track, we're in Corsa, which sharpens up the throttle and backs off the stability control a bit, but we're not really troubling it, to be honest. I had it on earlier in sport mode, and when the traction control kicks in, you get these little chirps like a Subaru WRC car from the turbos, which just sounds really cool. We'll just avoid this ibis that happens to fly across the track. That's the Phillip Island way. Little bit of oversteer up there. Now let's get to the chassis. It's quite, for a complete track experience, it's quite soft. I mean, relatively speaking, by supercar standards. It's got a bit of roll, got a bit of pitch, and you need to drive it properly to prevent the body roll taking over. If you get on the throttle too early, it'll lift the nose, it'll push wide. But there's actually more grip than you think. It does roll a little bit, but that just telegraphs what the car's doing, and if you really dig into it, man, this thing's got some grip. Holy moly, it's not even on particularly, special tyres. It's on sport specs Bridgestones. It's not on Pirelli Trofeo R's or Michelin Cup 2s or anything. Now that I've had a run in this car and I'm driving it again, you can kind of get used to it, and there's a beautiful balance to it. Again, it does roll a little bit, but you can trust it, and it feels trustworthy, it feels faithful, it feels confidence inspiring. Hard on the brakes again, get it rotated in this sharp corner. A little bit greedy, a little bit oversteer on the exit. ESP mopped up the excess. So, all in all, Maserati MC20 is a pretty damn awesome thing. Engine is outrageous, the chassis feels beautiful, it's super grippy, but feels like it might be quite playful as well. Steering's great, brakes are unbelievable, looks great. So, kind of out of nowhere, Maserati's delivered what feels like a peach of a supercar. I'd really like another go in it now to really have a play in it, but even on this first brief taste, there's a hell of a lot to like. Well done, Maserati.